Hello everyone, at 1995 here in the video game fanfiction plot with a new story for you all. It is called Grey, and I do hope you enjoy this video. And remember, I do not own Transformers Prime series and Fullmetal Alchemist series or the story. I give full credit to its author MessyArtwok on DeviantArt. Now onto the story. Chapter 4, From the Infraction to the Assault. At the moment when the cavern grew quiet, both brothers knew that something was very seriously wrong. This machine that was hell-bent on taking the both of them out of existence, wouldn't have stopped the artillery fire for no reason. From his crouched position on the cavern floor, Ed grabbed a fistful of dirt, letting the pebbles and dust slowly fall. All of this the silence, it was taking far too long. With a snicker, Starscream looked to the Vehicons behind him. "You there, take a small group around through the east tunnels and circle back around behind those human insects. The rest of you, follow me." Moving up the slope slowly, his blaster at the ready, Starscream led the remaining troopers. Lord Megatron will be most intrigued by this latest discovery. Peering around the barrier, Al could see their shadows growing larger on the wall. They were coming. Reeling back behind the protection of the barrier, Al looked to Ed. "They're coming back. Should we make a break for it?" "And go where?" Ed barked. "We're trapped. And I bet you anything that there are more on their way as we speak." Moving past Al to be towards the outside edge of the barrier, Ed clapped his hands together, then proceeded to unsheath the blade from his automail. "The only way we're getting out of this is with a fight." As much as he hated to admit it, Ed was right. These being whoever or whatever they were weren't going to just let them walk out of here. Someone was going to have to give, and by all indication, this Commander Starscream fella wasn't going to budge an inch. With that, Al gave a quick affirming nod to Ed before turning his attention to the slope, preparing both physically and mentally for what was inevitable to come. Commander Starscream. The OTRCK. Having appeared from an adjacent tunnel to the group, a Vehicon trooper froze, holding his hands out around his abdomen. His hands shaking as a blade of sorts had impaled his vital systems. With his red visor flickering to black, the Vehicon staggered and fell, offline long before his shell hit the mine's floor. In what seemed like mere seconds, the Vehicons coming up the slopes turned completely around to engage an enemy that neither Ed nor Al could see. Suddenly, what only could be described as metal on metal screeched through the tunnels of the mine, and what sounded like a battle quickly ensued. Both Ed and Al could only sit there and watch the shadows and sudden flashes caused by weapon fire on the wall just opposite of them. Voices rang out through the shafts. With a growl, Ed literally jumped over Al out from behind the protection of the barrier that he himself made. His reflexes being quick, Al grabbed the tail of Ed's jacket, yanking the young alchemist back suddenly. "Ed, what are you doing? We have to get out of here. Let's go back the way we came, back to the ring. Maybe there's a way we can activate it to go back home." That being said, Al rose up, hurling Ed up under his arm. Carrying the smaller brother back towards the way they came. Edward growled loudly, spitting as he yelled, "Al! Put me down!" Stopping suddenly at the sight of shadows of Vehicon troopers approaching from the direction of the ring. The dawning reality was nothing but certain. They were trapped. Putting Ed down, Alphonse knelt, raising his hands to shelter his eyes. "It's no use. They've got us surrounded on all sides. We really are trapped." Smacking Al with a soft thud to the helmet, Ed grinned. "Come on, Al. We've made it out of a lot worse situations than this." "Worse than facing an entire army of giant sentient metal giants? What experience have we been through that's worse than this?" Al barked, rising to his full height once more. As the shadows grew closer, Ed cringed. "Never mind the details, let's just try to find another way out." Bolting back around the other way. Back towards the sights and sounds of imminent danger. Both Ed and Al couldn't help but each roar a battle cry. As they passed their barricade, and slid down the slope, nothing. Absolutely nothing could have prepared them. The moment their feet touched the rock of the mine's main shaft, they were almost crushed by a Vihicon's lifeless husk. Using the machine's body as protection against other perils, both brothers realized quite quickly that they were in over their heads. Several Vihicons were suddenly engaging another group. But they didn't look anything like the machines that Ed and Al have encountered so far. In some ways they were like that Starscream character, but in others, they were very much different. There were 4 of them, each being more different than the last. A large green machine used what the brothers could only describe as an arm-mounted wrecking ball with studs mounted all over its surface, or even some kind of alien flail, just that it was missing its chain. Another machine, significantly smaller, screamed for visual attention with its bright yellow and black accented armor. It was far more nimble than the green giant, being as it leapt from one scaffold to another with ease, simultaneously blasting down one Vihicon after another with its dual arm-mounted blasters. "Bulk, toss me up." Suddenly, a far smaller blue machine was launched high into the air by the massive green being. It somersaulted only once before kneeling mid-air, firing 2 blasters that replaced its hands. Its small, petite frame landed hard on a Vihicon's back, simultaneously firing an energy round into its spinal column. The small blue being then transformed its arm from a gun to a hand, then proceeded on unsheath the blade. Hurtling itself off of the now lifeless Vihicon, the little blue bot raced past the yellow one, covering its rear as a Vihicon fired from far above the ground from scaffolding. Ed and Al's eyes watched as the Vihicon tumbled down through the air and hit the ground hard. An action that would have easily killed the average human being. Surprisingly though, the Vihicon stood up out of the dirt, bringing his arm-mounted blaster to his chest, ready to fire. That's when the Vihicon saw Ed and Al. "Commander Starscream, I have located the 2 human youth. What are your orders?" Through its comm link, Starscream's voice hissed. "Capture them both and bring them to the Nemesis. Now!" Rising up, its blaster humming to full power, the Vihicon slowly started to approach the boys. With his blade still ready from before, Ed growled, having a good idea as to what the oncoming machine's intentions were going to be. Al saw this too and immediately started to draw a transmutation circle on the stone of the mine's floor. Just then, without warning, a massive flash of blue and red appeared and overtook the approaching Vihicon from above. A massive, prolonged blade transfixed straight through the Vihicon's center, was pulled away only to be held up to the chest of its owner. Neither brother could accurately describe this being that stood to its mass loomed over the both of them. The only explanation that would remotely come close is that this being this giant that cast a shadow over every other machine fighting, was in short godlike. Fire red armor covered the Titan's upper chest, shoulders and arms, while a dark, sapphire-like blue orientated its head and legs. Both color schemes though, were traced with shimmering, argent, silver armor on the being's feet, shins, thighs, lower chest and face. However, to both perplexed brothers, the being's most notable feature was in fact not its shielding on the face but was its eyes. Fading from the outside into their center, the being's glowing eyes were azure and ice blue in color. Its pupils were solid white, and tracking the boy's movements. What seemed like several moments were in fact only a few seconds. And in that time, the brothers were able to take in so many details of this being's physical display. The being, in question, watched the boys closely. Its gaze curious and analytical, but soon turned to a gaze that which was distressed. Using its own body to shield the boys from stray energy fire and falling debris, the giant let out a horrid howl of pain. Turning its attention back to the fight, it rose up. Transforming its arm from being a blade into a very large gun. The being practically threw itself into a small group of troopers only to smash their heads in under its wrathful jet black hands. This being and the 4 others that the brothers could see. Clearly were fighting as one, imposing force to this Starscream character and his obvious followers. Optimus Prime. Looking up, far beyond the ascending fortifications of the mine's main shaft, Starscream stood with an eerie grin plastered on his face plates. This is not the first time we've traveled this path. That being said, you should be able to predict my actions to come. A cackle managed to escape the atrocious machine's throat before he dropped something from his hands. The object in question rebounded from crates littering the floor and fell to rest mere feet from the brothers. I must admit, Autobots, I would have preferred to take the vermin with me alive, but as I know I've said before, I'm squeamish. With that, Starscream quickly transformed into what the brothers could only describe as being a strange, middle bird-like vehicle that ascended the cavern faster than anything they've ever seen. Though it was not very large in appearance. The canister-looking apparatus had since expanded slightly in size and was beeping and blinking. Autobots, roll out. In a quick, mercurial action, 4 of the 5 mysterious machines that fought the Viacon troopers cleared the stiff trooper remains that both Ed and Al now hid behind. With a single jump before transforming into strange, remarkable vehicles, that moments later disappeared into a disparate tunnel. Unbeknownst to the brothers as they watched the spectacle take place, the massive red and blue being swept the two up into its hands. Transforming in mid-stride, the brothers ended up sitting inside the cab of a vehicle. Both being dazed and buffaloed from just having seen several large pieces of metal move and shift to form the vehicle that now lay in front of their very eyes. Both Ed and Al had seen vehicles before. Both were very familiar with cars and trucks, being as Amesters had a wide array of transportation that served various functions. But neither brother has ever seen a vehicle so impressionable in size, power, and configuration than this vehicle that was driving itself. Wait. Gripping his seat tightly, Ed's voice suddenly rose an octave or two. Just who's driving this thing? Brother. Looking over at Al, Ed noticed that his gaze was set on the rear view mirror mounted just outside to the right. As if embodying the spirit of an avalanche or quite possibly a pyroclastic flow, an ever-growing plume of florid blue smoke was hurtling towards them with unmeasurable ferocity. Ratchet, activate the ground bridge to the arrival coordinates, now! Just then, through the windshield of the truck, both Alphonse and Edward witnessed a large apparatus of energy open in front of the yellow vehicle leading the way through the tunnel. The apparatus itself looking almost identical to the same phenomenon that brought them to this hole in the first place. However, unlike their previous voyage, when they entered the apparatus interior, they were met with an environment that seemed to turn around them. Suddenly, the vehicle jolted forward. Propelling Edward into the steering wheel, making everything for the young alchemist go black. Lord Megatron, please. I only did what I thought you drug. Slamming down his large pad over Starscream's head. The Decepticon overlord bellowed and snarled. I have told you time and time again, Starscream, no one rids me of Optimus Prime but me. As the large mech raised his foot from the sniveling Seeker's frame, Starscream rolled over, sitting back on his arms, pleading to the enraged tyrant. Lord Megatron, please. I only did what I thought you would do. OWW. With a hard backhand to Starscream's cowering chassis, Megatron growled. And in doing so you have completely obliterated one of our largest stockpiles of energon. Rising quickly to his knees, the much smaller Decepticon pleaded. My lord. I only did what I thought was necessary to keep the energon and those human filth far from Autobot reach. Ugh. Expeditiously grabbing Starscream by the vocal processor, Megatron spoke attentively, infuriated. Starscream, why would I have the slightest interest in two of the Autobots' human pets? No, my lord, Starscream pleaded, his legs dangling above the ship's floor. Clawing at the mech whose temper was only further inflamed. My lord. The humans. They were not any of the three that we know of. They were different. Starscream. I grow tired of this. Raising his hands to hide his face from Megatron's wrathful hand, Starscream pleaded. Lord Megatron, these humans conjured weapons and stone structures from nothing. They have an ability I have never seen any human ever use. Megatron, please, I beg you, I am telling you the truth. Only a moment passed before the grip around the second-in-command's neck loosened, and Starscream's face was brought closer to Megatron's. Speak Starscream. Quickly. As Megatron lowered the Seeker's mast, the same Seeker swallowed slowly. My lord. These humans. They were nothing like I've ever seen before. They created a form of concealment and a barrier from stone. One of them used his own limb to create a weapon and they injured one of the Vehicon troopers with. They injured one of the Vehicons? How? Shrugging sheepishly, Starscream grinned. Come with me to the medical wing, my lord. The Vehicon's shell is there. Knockout is examining him as we speak. I think you'll be most intrigued by his findings. Edward couldn't see anything. All he could see was black. All he could hear was thunder and voices that were soft and muffled. Ed? Edward, can you hear me? Come on, Ed, you need to wake up now. It almost sounded like Winry. Regardless of how hard he tried, he just couldn't bring himself to gather the strength he needed to open his eyes. But he could feel a breeze. Was he back in Rizambul? Possibly laying in the grass in front of Winry and Granny Pinocchio's house? Could all of what he and Al been through in the past several hours had just been some kind of strange, elaborate dream? Brother? Alphonse? Brother, please wake up. Slowly opening his eyes, Ed half expected to see blue skies, but instead was met seeing Al's helmet with a backdrop of high suspended, cement ceilings and fluorescent light fixtures suspended from the ceiling. They were not back in Rizambul. What they had experienced was in fact not a dream. All of this, the machines, the blue crystals. The ring. It was all very much real. Having to blink several times just to adjust to the light, Ed let out a soft groan before scowling at Al. I was kind of hoping that all of this was actually just some messed up delusion. With a half-hearted laugh, Al shrugged. No, none of this is in your imagination. I hate to break it to you, but what happened, really did happen. Not before letting out a soft, arduous groan, Ed held his head feeling bandages encompassing his forehead. What happened? All I remember is lurching forward sudden and hitting my head and then nothing. Sitting on a small crate next to where Ed now lay, Al shrugged, his armor creaking softly as he did so. You, kind of hit your head on the steering wheel of the truck. You were banged up pretty bad. Turning his head completely in Al's direction, Ed sighed, laying back down on the couch. What happened to the mine we were in? Al was quiet for a while before turning away slightly. It exploded. Suddenly Ed's eyes went very wide. Exploded? Seriously? Al nodded. It made sense. Nothing else could have looked that way except the plume of an explosion. We were actually pretty lucky. All things considered. Standing up, Al grabbed a glass of water, sitting it closer for Ed to grab. Ed looked up, watching Al before sitting up suddenly. Those machines were Ed knew he shouldn't have sat up that fast. Al just laughed. They're here too. You were only out for about a half an hour or so. But in that time they fixed you up and then left again. Letting his hands slowly rise to his forehead. Ed couldn't help but feel kind of dumbfounded. They helped me? Why? Al shrugged. Don't know. Everything happened so fast when we came through that portal that I really didn't get a lot of time to ask questions. With a sigh, Al slowly clenched his fist. After we came through, the machine that picked us up let me out. He told me to stand back as he transformed with you in his hand. He called the name of a machine that was already here. That machine took you from the hands of the other and brought you over there to that workbench, over there. As Al pointed, Ed's eyes couldn't help but follow. He used some kind of device in his arm to see what was wrong with you. He said it wasn't anything serious. He bandaged you. And put you here on this cot, then told me that you'd be fine. It wasn't until you were here that the other machine that took care of you, talked to the one that saved us. I don't know what they were talking about, but I know it was about you. Where are they now? Ed inquired. Again, Al just shrugged. I don't know. After they were done talking amongst themselves, they just left. None of this made sense. None of it at all. Why was it, that at one moment there were these giant machines trying to kill them just for being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And now now, they were saved and being taken care of the same kind of machines. Why? Looking around, Ed grumbled. This whole thing seemed like one crazy, whacked up scheme that the homunculi conceived. Well now, it's nice to see you awake and moving. At that moment, both brothers turned their attention to the low, thunderous voice that spoke, only to meet the gaze of the same machine that picked the two of them up in the mine, the same machine that saved them. The being was slow to approach. His movements were slow and calculated. I apologize for any inconvenience my careless actions may have caused. But I am adequately relieved to see that the both of you are all right. As its massive frame rested against the catwalk's railing, its glowing, blue eyes rested on the two. Watching the gargantuan being, both Ed and Al noticed right away something different. Before, during their first encounter, they had noticed the same being having had a battle mask of sorts covering its face. But now, its face was free of any protective barriers and revealed lips. They could see this being's true face. The being lowered its head respectfully before meeting the brothers' gaze, his thunderous voice ominous but sincere. I must also apologize for having left the two of you so suddenly. I would have remained to offer any explanation you may need, however, a situation arose and had to be dealt with. With a sheepish shrug, Al laughed shyly. That's all right. We can't complain too much. I mean, you did save our lives after all. With a slight scowl under the hair covering his eyes, Ed grumbled. Why did you save us anyway? By all suggestion, your buddies were gonna turn us into mincemeat. So why'd you put your skin on the line and come back for us when you probably don't even know who or what we are? Brother! Al shouted, his stare feeling icy and adverse. Why are you being so rude? They saved our lives. Huffing, Ed rose from the cot pulling his red jacket around himself. I'm sorry Al, but I for one would like an explanation for this whole hellish nightmare. I would also like to know if I'm going to have to go back to a mistress in a box. Regardless of his outbursts, Ed was still quite observant and noticed the subtle changes in the red and blue being's behavior. Both Ed and Al could tell that Ed's outburst upset the being. First and foremost human we know exactly what you are. And the beings that you encountered are in no way, shape or form allies of ours. In part, they are enemies. This being shifted its stance only slightly before softening its gaze. The beings that you encountered refer to themselves as Decepticons. Like us, they are autonomous, robotic organisms that hail from the planet Cybertron. However they are a malevolent force. Fearsome warriors, known well for being both brutal and merciless, they are driven by a single undeviating goal, total domination of the universe. For a moment, both Ed and Al couldn't help but keep silent. But then Ed snorted softly. Fine they were Decepti whatevers what does that make you? We are called Autobots. Walking into the room an aged, orangish red and white machine, fairly shorter than the red and blue being trotted in. His demeanor short-tempered and overall unpleasant. For millennia we have rose to meet the Decepticon threat and see that their attempts are countered and overall stopped. This same machine growled, looking the two humans over. Nice to see that there are some sentient beings around here capable of showing a little thing called gratitude. Stiffening his back, Ed glared at the being infuriated. I'm not all certain I like your sarcasm. The smaller machine growled, returning a similar glare to the golden-haired human. And I'm not also certain I like being talked at by a short, negligible human. Suddenly, Ed practically threw himself over the catwalk's railing toward the machine, only to be just as suddenly grabbed and restrained by Al. Who are you calling a puny weakling you can't hardly see over the safety rail? You old, wrinkled-ass tin can. Surprisingly, the massive red and blue being had to restrain to orangish red and white one. Who are you calling an overaged, rusted-out, scrapyard heap? You little cretin. Ratchet, the taller being's voice was low and firm. Looking at the much larger bot, The smaller's glare became mute and it huffed and walked away. Al growled, smacking Ed on the head, eliciting a painful groan. He wasn't calling you small brother. You shouldn't be so quick to insult someone you've only just met. What in the world is going on in here? I could have swore I just heard Ratchet yelling. Just then the smaller, more petite machine both Ed and Al had seen before walked in, its voice higher, more gentle and feminine. Behind it, the green and yellow bots followed along with a new white, blue and red machine, who immediately pranced over to the two brothers standing on the catwalk. So these are the two you found in the Decepticon mine, huh? Sheesh. So what's with the one wearing all the armor? Is that like a new fashion trend among humans or something? Smokescreen, give it a rest, would ya? Walking past the white, blue and red machine, the much larger green bot smacked his back hard, then looked at the boys. Particularly at Al. Don't pay any attention to him, he didn't mean anything by it. His gaze continued as gentle and sincere, the massive red and blue being gestured to himself and the others. I would think it only necessary that introductions be in order. Gesturing to the machine that Ed had fought with earlier but was now grumbling quietly at his work desk, the red and blue being sighed. You've already met our medic, Ratchet. Ratchet simply waved without as so much a glance. The speaking machine then gestured to the rest. The green mech you see is named Bulkhead, next to him, our scout Bumblebee. The blue, two-wheeler is RC, and gesturing to the white, blue and red bot beside her, RC grinned playfully. And Mr. Hot Rod here is Smokescreen. With a very simple, pout-like gesture, Smokescreen looked away. I'm not that much of a hot rod. The yellow machine, Bumblebee, beeped a few times in what almost sounded like a cackle. Smokescreen glared. Okay. So maybe I kind of am. All the bots shared a laugh before looking at the boys watching them. The large red and blue bot straightened up watching the two. My name is Optimus Prime, and I am the leader of this team of Autobots. Optimus Prime. So that was its name. That was his name. Gesturing to Ed, Al was genuine and sincere. My name is Alphonse Elric, and this is my brother Edward. RC, stepping forward, looked at the two curiously. What in this world were you two doing in the Decepticons' main Energon stronghold? Ed snickered, looking at RC with a cheeky grin. Believe me, we weren't there on purpose. Then how did you get there? Bulkhead inquired. Rubbing the back of his helmet, Al laughed dryly. Well, we came through this strange, stone, ring-like device and somehow ended up in a cavern. Wait. Ring-like device, you say? Suddenly this Ratchet character decided that perhaps these two are worth his effort after all. Moving to a large group of computer screens suspended around a central terminal, Ratchet managed to bring up an image, then turned to meet the gaze of the humans in their presence. Is this by any chance the ring-like device you saw? Both Ed and Al stopped dead in their tracks looking at the image. It was the device that brought them here. It was the device that had to have been destroyed in the explosion. Slowly Al nodded and Ed spoke. How? What? Ratchet shrugged, studying the boys carefully. It's an ancient piece of Cybertronian technology developed by early Autobots. How is it you know of it? The only thing Ed or Al could do was look to one another before looking to this group known now to them as the Autobots. Ed was the first to speak, and was very careful with every word he chose to say. That ... is the same device ... that brought us here. Cocking his head, Smokescreen watched the two. Brought you here from ... where, exactly? Without so much thinking about it, Al answered. Mistress. Not even giving the chance to have more questions asked ... Ed stood looking at Optimus Prime. You know what this device is, don't you? Optimus nodded, slowly looking at the schematics of the device in question. I do. We all do. It is called a space bridge. Looking at Ed, Al's voice was urgent. Edward, do you know what this means? That ring. That device we found in Amestris under Laboratory 5 is in fact a piece of alien technology. And we are in the presence of the technology's creator's ancestors. Ed, watching Al, sighed. But that doesn't explain why the device activated when it came in contact with Alchemy. Al. Just then a chorus of Alchemy? S rang out from amongst the Autobots. It was then that the Elric brothers realized they may very well be explaining the circumstances of their current predicament for the next several minutes. Hours. Or even days. The only thing to do. Was start from the beginning. Well, that's the ending of that chapter. I do hope you enjoy this video. If you like to see more, remember to hit that like button, subscribe to this channel and leave a comment down below. Until next time.